Good evening. If you don't know who I am, you should be ashamed of yourself. My name is Dan Proft. I'm the WLS Morning Show talk host of some sort. Thank you. I've had the privilege to MC this dinner for a number of years running now, and they invited me back in their infinite wisdom, and I appreciate that. So it's a pleasure to be with you all. I think this is far and away the most crowded Lincoln Day dinner we've ever had, so I guess that's a testament to all of the Northwest Suburban Cook County organizations and our guest speaker. We do need to get the program going right away because Senator Paul has to catch a flight, and of course we want to hear from him. So with that, if I could get the Schaumburg American Legion Post 1983 to come forward with the presentation of the colors. Now, if you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stay standing as we have Miss Kathleen Tresnowski, if she could come forward to regale us with the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
If I could have Pastor David Barber from the Emmanuel Lutheran Church come forward with the invocation. Pastor.
Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Gracious giver of life, we entrust ourselves in these United States into your loving care. You are the rock on which our nation was founded. You alone are the true source of our cherished rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Bless our land with your spirit and presence. Help us to appreciate the many gifts and opportunities you have placed into our hands. Watch over and protect the many men and women who place their lives at risk to protect and serve our nation and her interests. May we never take your blessings for granted. Raise up leaders among us in the spirit of Abraham Lincoln, leaders who are true servants, gifted with wisdom, compassion, and understanding, bold to lead even in difficult times. Bless those whose service to our nation we honor this night, and we ask your presence among us. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. So it is my pleasure. We're going to get right to it before dinner, and then after Senator Paul speaks, we'll chow down. But it is my pleasure to introduce, if I could have your attention, please. If I could have your attention, please. It is my pleasure to introduce Senator Rand Paul this evening, our guest speaker. We've had the pleasure of having Senator Paul on the show on WLS a number of times, and I just have to say, whether you agree with everything Senator Paul has to say or not, he is a joy to speak with. He is a joy to watch on. He's a joy to watch on the cable news networks, and the reason is because in the age of fortune cookie candidates, this is a gentleman who makes thoughtful, reasoned, constitutionally based arguments that explain why he holds this position or that position. In an age where we need more intellectual leadership at the highest levels in the Republican Party, Senator Rand Paul is aptly filling that void, at least in part. I think maybe his seminal moment for much of America was during the Benghazi hearings, when a lot of other Republicans were intimidated by Hillary Clinton or the news media or some combination of the two. Senator Rand Paul did something I think you don't see happen in Washington, certainly not in Springfield very much. It was all well and good if Hillary Clinton wanted to accept responsibility for the administration as to what happened in Benghazi, but Senator Paul was the only one who attached consequences to that responsibility when he said, had he been president, she would have been terminated from her job. In an age where too many Republicans are cake eaters, Senator Rand Paul is a street fighter. And I'm applauding him every step of the way because it's precisely what we need. I have asked Senator Rand Paul, and he's allowed me that if by acclamation it would be okay if he announced his intentions for 2016. So if you could say if it's okay if he makes national news here at the Lincoln Day dinner, is that okay? If Senator Rand Paul does that here? Kentucky Senator Rand Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. Leave it to a right-wing radio talk show host to really get you inflamed. Now, I didn't say terminated, Dan. I said I would have relieved her of her post. Now, I'm glad to see that we had prayer to begin with. You can do it as long as you don't do it in the school, so be careful where you're praying. You can pray in the Senate. We pray every day. We have a prayer to begin this day. In fact, there was a famous chaplain back right around the turn of the last century named Edward Hale, and he was asked, "Do you pray for the Senate?" And he said, "I've met the senators, and frankly, I pray for the people." There's some truth to that. There's definitely some truth to that. Now, some people think this is all, just so much fun campaigning, but sometimes it's not. We'd rather be, home with our family or home with our kids. And I'm not saying y'all aren't great, but sometimes we miss things by being out on the road. When I was campaigning, I sometimes ran into some strange occurrences, to say the least. One day I'm campaigning in Litchfield, Kentucky. This is after campaigning for about a year, and a woman comes up to me, and she grabs me by the hair and said, "Oh, I just wanted to see if it was a toupee or not." And I said, "Hey, lady, I'm just having a bad hair day. Give me a break." So I thought I was done with that, and I thought, people, they're still not wondering if I'm wearing a toupee, are they? So I go to Israel about a month ago, and I'm at the West Wall praying, and it's a truly an emotional thing, and I've got a yarmulke on, and I don't always read the comments. So if you write nasty comments about me, I won't always read them, but I did read the comments in the newspaper. There's a story, and what's the first comment? Yeah, there he is in Israel with that yarmulke tacked to his rug. So the one thing, if you don't remember anything else about this speech, you may not think I'm genuine, but my hair is genuine, all right? We eat 3 times a week with the Republican caucus. Sometimes it's kind of an echo chamber. It's all the Republican senators, and unfortunately there's 2 less than there was last year. So there's 45 of us, and we eat in a small room. We get to know each other pretty well. Sometimes it's an echo chamber. If you're in there saying, "I'm for the Second Amendment," you're getting slapped on the back and everybody loves you. But go down the list a little bit, and it's not always such a consensus. So once you get to the Fourth Amendment, you're not getting everybody. If you think they ought to have a warrant before they take your papers, or if you think they ought to have a warrant before they look at your visa bill, most of you probably do not realize this. For about 40 years now, your visa bill is open pickings for anybody that wants to look at it because it's held by a third party. We gave up on the Fourth Amendment once we gave our bank records, and I think that's wrong. Think about your life today. If you're like me, I spend almost everything on my Visa card. I probably don't have $1 in my pocket right now because I use my Visa card. But everything's on it. You can tell whether I go to a doctor, whether I see a psychiatrist, which I don't yet. You can tell whether I drink, which I haven't yet this evening, so you're safe there. You can tell whether I gamble, what magazines I read, who I associate with, all by looking at my Visa bill. For goodness sake, shouldn't you have to accuse me of a crime before looking at my Visa bill? So we're sitting in there, and we're talking about something called indefinite detention. It's our caucus of 47 at that time. And the discussion goes on, and I raise my hand and I say, well, the Sixth Amendment says you get a right to a trial by jury. We give it to the most despicable people in our country. If tonight you leave here or you find or someone is accused in Chicago of something horrible that we all want to punish them for, murder, rape, armed robbery, killing, we give them a trial and a jury. It's something to assess guilt. It's important to us. It's been going on since about the year 725 AD out of English common history, jury trials. So it came forward that they had this thing called the Defense Authorization Bill, and it said that you could indefinitely detain specifically an American citizen with an accusation. So on the floor, I said to my friend, and he is my friend, we don't always agree, but I consider him to a friend, to Senator McCain, I said, does this mean you could send an American citizen to Guantanamo Bay with no trial ever, just by an accusation? He says, yes, if they're dangerous. The problem is that's what a jury is for. That's what an accusation is for. We fought the Revolutionary War because we didn't like the king applying general warrants. A general warrant was a warrant that didn't have anybody's name on it. They just went into anybody's house. These are the Fifth, the Sixth, the Third, all these amendments. It's not just about the Second Amendment. But why I'm so proud of this day is I was by myself. Those who agreed said nothing, and those who disagreed often were very vocal, but one senator stood up and supported me, and that was Senator Mark Kirk. And I didn't know him very well at the time. I didn't know him very well at the time, but he was very eloquent. He was very much to the point. He actually lifted his copy of the Constitution and went and read through it. So we can't be so fearful of people. I hate terrorists as much as anybody. I'm all for killing them in the battlefield, killing them around the world if they want to attack us. And yet, we can't just say that we're going to let drones drop on Americans in this country. And Mark Kirk stood there and understood this. And what you need to understand about this battle over the drones is we're not talking about somebody with a grenade launcher on their shoulder. If you are attacking anyone, lethal force can always be used against you around the world, any battlefield, and in the U.S. But it wouldn't be the military and it wouldn't be the CIA in the U.S. It would be the FBI and the police, and it is different. It's important. We've had rules for 150 years. The military does not operate in the United States. Neither does the CIA. And you have to understand that some of these people being killed by drones are being killed in their house or walking along the pavement or in a cafeteria. I mean, I've said a lot of bad things about big government. I don't want them coming to my house with a drone. But the thing is that this is an important concept. So we're fighting this over the Brennan nomination right now. I won't be able to stop him forever, but I am fighting in the committee, and it's an interesting coalition. I have people on the left, Ron Wyden, who I consider to be a good liberal. And then I have people on the right as well supporting me. And we have a coalition right now stopping his nomination. We cannot beat him. We cannot defeat him forever. But we're asking the White House, will you at least acknowledge the law? I mean, this is such a simple answer, no, that I can't believe that they won't do it. But when Brennan was asked about this, about the drone strikes, he says there is no geographic limitation. So your obvious question is, does that mean the U.S. border doesn't stop you? Does that mean you're going to bomb somebody at a cafe in Houston? You're not going to go pick them up and arrest them? I mean, we can have bad people in our country, but we should arrest them. We can't just kill people without having any kind of process. And he says no geographic limitation. He did say, oh, it has to be an imminent threat, but it doesn't have to be immediate. Now, only a bunch of lawyers could say imminent is not immediate. So the president finally has to respond. He's out at Google campus a couple weeks ago, and the president finally has to respond. They ask him a direct question. Mr. President, can you strike with a drone and kill an American citizen at home? And he says, well, we haven't so far. That's not that encouraging. And he says, well, we have no intention to. Well, that's like saying, I haven't broken the Second Amendment yet, and I have no intention to. Well, I mean, can't it be a little bit stronger? I will not break the Constitution. I will not kill Americans without a trial. Now, I did have a couple of questions for Secretary Clinton, and I've still got a few more. How much time? Do I have time to ask her a few more questions, Dan? The first question, here's the first question. Where in the hell were the Marines? You know what her response is? Oh, the Marines are only there to protect the paper. And I said, I've met Marines. Marines aren't there just to protect paper. But apparently that's the State Department official policy. Marines are not there to protect the people. They're there to protect the paper. And I said, well, isn't there a difference between the embassy in Libya or the consulate in Benghazi and the embassy in Paris? Aren't they a little bit different? Maybe the rules shouldn't be the same. She said, well, you know, I just don't have time to read all my cables. I get 1 million cables a year. And I said, well, you know, I don't expect you to read every cable from Estonia or Bulgaria, but from Libya, yes, I do expect you to have time to read every cable. And when they ask you repeatedly for more security, it is inexcusable that you didn't help those people. And so she says, well, you didn't give me enough money. And I said, the hell we didn't. We gave you, let's see, what did you spend money on? 3 days after they denied the DC-3, a plane that could help ferry people around the country to get them out, you know what they did? She approved $100,000 for an electrical charging station for the ambassador in Vienna because he wants to show off to his buddies in Western Europe how much he believes in climate change, and he's got electric volt. Oh, you also paid for that. The car subsidized $250,000 per car, but we had to put a special charging station in for him because they didn't have that. $100,000 for that 3 days after they denied the request for security help. So the summer goes on, and they say they don't have enough money. They spent $300,000 on dog kennels in Iraq. They spent another $100,000 on, and no personal disrespect to our Indian American supporters, to send Indian American comedians to India to promote our culture. That I don't see as a real, primary function of our State Department. So then we get to the middle of August and they send a plea, keep the security team in place. We've got to have help. No answer. We didn't send them any help. And so when she says, and her defenders say, well, you're being unfair to her. Does anybody remember Mogadishu? Anybody remember Black Hawk Down? You know what happened to Les Aspin? He was the Secretary of Defense, and the request came for months and months in advance that we need more armored personnel. We need more of this. We need more of that. He didn't do anything. He didn't get them any of the things they requested. And you know what happened to him? He was forced to resign. And that's exactly what Hillary Clinton should have done. We had a report about this. So they have an investigation. It was done very thoroughly, and they came up with like 64 recommendations, all of them good. All of them should have been thought of by any reasonable type of manager or leader in advance of this. But they come back and they missed one thing completely. I don't think the embassy in Libya is the same as the embassy in Paris. I think that there's no way you should have an embassy in Libya or probably Somalia or probably Yemen or probably a half a dozen other countries unless it's under the military control. We had an embassy in Baghdad, and it's been under military control. It may have finally transformed, but for years and years, generals and colonels and people who knew how to set up a perimeter did it. We can't send people into harm's way and just say, oh, you know who your protection is? The February 17th militia? You know what they did? First shots rang out, they ran the other way. There was nobody there. In fact, one of them was on the phone, they think may have been informing the other people it's a good time to attack. It's not, when Hillary Clinton travels the world, she doesn't travel with the February 17th militia guarding her. So we have to do a better job than that. Now, you've heard a lot about this sequester, and the president lines up a bunch of policemen and firemen behind him and says they're all going to lose their job. Can someone bring him back to a civics class and instruct him that 98% of their salaries, and it really should be 100%, but 98% of their salaries are put done with your local taxes. If you need more firemen out here, I'm all for fire protection. If you need more, you will have to pay a little more in your taxes. But we can't just print up the money in Washington. But he's being dishonest to say they're going to lose their jobs. They're not going to lose their jobs. Even your teachers. We have a lot of federal involvement in school. 95% of all education is still funded by your local taxes. It's scaremongering. It's inexcusable, and it shows signs that he doesn't really know how to lead this country. Now, a lot of people say, woe is me, how could we ever cut? We've just cut to the bone. There's nothing left to cut. We haven't even started. Just not rehiring the people who retire. There's somewhere between 60 and 100,000 people who retire each year from the federal government. That's $6.5 billion a year. I gave the president this suggestion. You know when he took it? 2 days ago. When did we vote on the sequester? A year and a half ago. So he's just not doing his job. Now, federal workers make 16% more, and I think work 16% less than private workers. If you were to pay them the same as private workers, that's $32 billion. You're really at what the sequester is. It's about $44 billion next year is the real sequester, if you want to know what it is. How else could we save money? How about competitive contracts? We still give out government contracts with one bid. If you had competitive contracts, that's $10 billion. How about competitive wages? Why should we pay $60 an hour for a carpenter when the real wage is $25 an hour? We could have competitive wages that we pay. That saves about another $9 billion. Why do they have to go to $1 million conference in Las Vegas? Why do they, we spend $9 billion on travel. Cut travel budget by 25%. That's another $2 billion. Foreign aid. I frankly don't think that countries that are burning our flag and chanting death to America deserve one penny. I asked Secretary Kerry this when he came up for a nomination. I said, look, is Pakistan our friend or not our friend? We've given them $7.5 billion. The doctor over there, Shakil Afridi, who helped us to get bin Laden, is in jail for the rest of his life. I said, will you, at the very least, make their aid contingent upon freeing Dr. Afridi? And he said no. He said he would give him sternly worded, request to release him. They're not going to do that. They only understand the purse strings. And it's foolish of us to give money to a country that disrespects us like that. Now, whenever they say it's been cut to the bone, I like to point out a few things that they may have missed. $325,000 last year for a robotic squirrel. Now, you would ask, why would you need a robotic squirrel? All right, if you're studying whether a rattlesnake will strike a squirrel when the squirrel's not wagging their tail, it's hard to get a real squirrel to volunteer not to wag its tail. But fear not, your money has developed a robotic squirrel, and I can tell you with surety, the answer is yes, indeed, the rattlesnake will strike the squirrel if it's not wagging its tail. $325,000. $100,000 for the albino squirrel park. My question is, how do you get the albino squirrels to stay in the park? And I like albino squirrels. I think they're good luck. We have them in my neighborhood, but it's like we have to have a special park for them. They're in my trees in my backyard. Turtle tunnels. $3 million for turtle tunnels. Now, what is a turtle tunnel? You probably know about set-asides for things. Set-asides for road construction. 10% of all road construction can go into beautification. So one of the beautifications they did in Florida, turtle tunnels. Now, I still can't figure this one out either. So there's a sign telling the squirrel to go through the tunnel and not across the road. I don't know how that works. If any of you have college-age kids and they're still at home, or they're past college age and they're still at home, these government studies are perfect for you. It can be difficult to qualify. This one was you get to go to Hawaii. You get a $5,000 stipend. And this is the clincher, you have to like food. The project was to develop a menu for Mars. In case we go to Mars, or when we go to Mars, you have to have a menu. So these college kids studied it for $500,000, and you know what they came up with? Pizza. Now, you hear daily, if you turn the news on, that we need to compromise. And I'm not against compromise. There's always working with two sides to try to find some way of doing it. But we shouldn't let the other side define what the compromise is. So we have a real problem as a country. We're spending $1 trillion we don't have every year. We've added $6 trillion to the debt in the last 4 years. But be thankful the president saved you $2 trillion, because he was planning on adding $8 trillion, and he only added $6 trillion. So he saved you $2 trillion. It's absurd. The things he can say, and people look at him with a straight face and don't question that. He cut the deficit by $2 trillion. That's malarkey. How can he say that? How can anybody possibly let him get away with it? But there does have to be a compromise. But the compromise isn't raising taxes. One, it won't work. You raise tax rates, you may well get less revenue. We're not going to know for about a year with these new rates whether we get more revenue or not. But you can get more revenue by lowering rates. It's happened repeatedly throughout our history. The George Bush tax cuts in 2001, 2003, we lowered rates, we got more revenue. Guess what? The rich people paid more, a higher percentage. The tax code's becoming more progressive, even with lower rates. We've got plenty of revenue. We had plenty of revenue coming in until something happened. In 2007, 2008, we went into a terrible recession. After the Bush tax cuts go in place, revenue goes up, and it also stays steady as a percentage of GDP. It goes down when we go into a recession. We have this huge economic bust. That's why there's not revenue. It's starting to come back now. But the bottom line is we should not give up as a party. We should not give up and say, well, yes, we'll just go ahead and give him a little bit, even though we know in our mind it's a bad thing to raise taxes. But there can be a compromise. To me, the compromise is a different one. It's on the spending side of the ledger. What we have to acknowledge is that Republicans, that's most of us here in this group, who believe that national defense is important, that it's probably the number one priority of the federal government, that it is constitutional and that we need to do it, but we need to acknowledge that not every dollar spent is wisely spent or sacred. We need to acknowledge that there is room for savings in the military budget. And likewise, the Democrats need to acknowledge the same on their side of the ledger. There is room and definitely room for cutting on the domestic programs. But if you look at just the discretionary programs, that's where the sequester is, you can eliminate 100% of them forever, and you still don't balance the budget. You have to look at entitlements. That's 2/3 of your budget. Until you do that, you're not serious, and we're not serious. But we shouldn't be afraid of this. I ran for office and said, we're living longer. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's not Republicans' fault. It's not Democrats' fault. There was a whole bunch of kids. It's your damn grandparents. They had too many damn kids after the war. And now they're all retiring. And then the next generation didn't have enough kids. It's a demographic problem. We're living longer. We just have to delay the age for the next generation just a little bit. 2 months a year over about 20 years fixes 2/3 of the Social Security problem. I think you have to do means testing also, which means people like myself and many in this room have done well. You're going to get a little bit less Social Security. Not taking it away from you, just get a couple $100 less. You got other pensions. These are people who are well off. I think we can do that. We can do that in Medicare. You need more than that in Medicare. That only fixes 1/3 of the Medicare problem. So you've got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do, but we can do it if we stick together. But we have to believe in something. We have to put candidates forward who can energize the vote. We need to put candidates forward who can be competitive in Illinois again, in California again, New York, New England. We need to not give up and be minus 180 electoral votes when we start. If we can do that, if we can believe in ourselves, believe in our message, believe in our founders, believe in our founding documents, if we can do those things, I see no limit to what we can do. I see no limit to what the greatness that is still in store for us. If we can believe in something, if we can move forward and say, you know, we're not beaten, which in Cook County is important to say that. Everybody repeat after me. We are not beaten. It's been a real privilege to be here tonight. It's been a privilege to be in the U.S. Senate. If nothing ever else happens to me, I've really enjoyed being a mix and a part of the debate. I continue on trying to mix it up. Even this week, we will not let Brennan go without a fight. I would conclude by saying one thing, though. Until we reach out to all various groups, African American, Indian American, Asian American, Latin American, until we do that, we are shrinking and we are going to be a permanent minority party. Now, this isn't to say it can't change, but we have to do something differently. We do have to reach out. We have to go. We have to show up. We need to talk about the great and rich history we have of emancipation, of voting rights, of civil rights that all came from Republicans. We need to remember and let others remember that in 1930, 99.5% of all African Americans were Republicans. We can regain that again. We need to talk about economic opportunity. We need to talk about school choice. In Cook County, you need to talk about some of the corruption of the other party. There's all kinds of ways, but we can't give up. We need to fiercely fight because what we were founded upon, the liberty that we all cherish, is too precious to give up. Thank you very much.
Now, please have a seat, and your not taxpayer-subsidized dinner will be served. One of the things that Senator Paul didn't include in his speech, but I think is so appropriate for this time in our party as we think about all of the races that are up in 2014, just a year away. Rand Paul said in his speech at the Republican convention, "We have nothing to fear except our own unwillingness to defend what is naturally ours, our God-given rights. We have nothing to fear that should cause us to forget or relinquish our rights as free men and women. To thrive, we must believe in ourselves again, and we must never, never trade our liberty for any fleeting promise of security." I think if we take that disposition, as Republicans and Republican organizations in this state, I think we'd be surprised how fast and how far we can swing the pendulum of power back in Illinois, as we have seen so many of our Midwestern neighbors do over the last several cycles. And the people that are going to be leading the charge to swing that pendulum, the region of this state that is mission critical if we are going to be successful at the statewide level, as well as in picking up congressional seats that were lost in 2012, are the township committeemen and township organizations that put this wonderful dinner on this evening. And to introduce those individuals, I want to bring up Schaumburg Township's Joe Felici.
Well, thanks, Dan. Isn't Dan great? Isn't he great? As he said before, he's the new morning lead guy at WLS Radio in Chicago, so please tune in and listen to him. I think he mentioned earlier he's been the MC. This is our 6th annual dinner, and he has MC'd 5 of them. And the one that he couldn't MC because he had another commitment, we had Guy Benson, who did a nice job, but nobody's as good as Dan Prof, so we appreciate it. I hope you've all been enjoying our 6th annual dinner. This is our biggest dinner that we have ever had, and so we're very proud of that. But this is the part of the program that you have to bear with me, because we want to introduce some of the people who helped put this program together and our Republican committeemen. But first, I want to thank the people in this room who have supported us by buying ads in our program book, which is our biggest and best ever, have supported us by buying tickets to this dinner, which is our biggest and best ever, and by supporting us in our raffle, which is the first time we are trying that. So we really appreciate it. And I would also appreciate if you take the ad book with you and you look through it and patronize those people who have taken ads out, because they're good Republican businessmen and women, and it'd be great if you can give them our support. And when you go in there, tell them you saw their ad in the program book. It'll help us sell them an ad again next year. All right, I especially want to thank we had 2 receptions this evening, and I want to thank the sponsors of those receptions. Aaron Del Mar, who's our Cook County Republican chairman. Aaron's over there. Bruce Ronner, I think he's still here. There's Bruce. He's our Chicago business leader and philanthropist. Jack Roser. Jack's over here. Jack is a longtime conservative leader and supporter, and I know he's helped us in Schaumburg, and actually he's helped all the 7 participating township organizations quite a lot. And then Shali Kumar. Shali's over here. Shali is an international businessman and chairman of Indian Americans for Freedom, and he's been helping us in Schaumburg with our Indian outreach program, because as you maybe heard Shali say earlier, that is really an area that we need to make inroads in, and we're working hard at that. Next, I want to thank our Republican Township committeemen, and I'm going to introduce them and ask them to stand, but because I'm sure you guys don't want to be here till midnight, why don't we wait until they're all up, and then you can thank them. Gene Dawson, Barrington Township. Gene, you want to stand? Where'd Gene go? No, let's hold your applause, Gene. Okay, Gene's over there. Mike Sweeney, Elk Grove. Tim Schneider, Hanover Park. Where'd Tim go? Tim's here somewhere. There's Tim. Peter Amarantos, Northfield. Aaron Del Mar again, Palatine. Ryan Higgins, Schaumburg. And Ruth O'Connell, Wheeling. And the dinner couldn't be the success that I think it is without the hard work of our dinner committee. And again, I'd like to introduce them, ask them to stand. Again, if you don't want to be here till midnight, hold your applause until I introduce them all. Brendan Syring, who's our dinner treasurer. He's in the back of the room. He's been working with our volunteers selling the raffle tickets. Sharon Johnson, who's our secretary from Palatine Township. Sharon's around somewhere, probably working. Bob Vintage, our program book coordinator from Schaumburg Township. Bob and I spent many long nights and into the early morning on the ad book, getting it all together. And Bob is a tireless worker on our behalf. Dan Fitzgerald and Amy Nakaza from Barrington Township. Come on, you guys should be standing. You're supposed to be standing. Dale Lewandowski and Russ Nowak from Elk Grove Township. Mary Alice Benoit, Hanover Township. Our newest member, Linda Casperson from Northfield Township. And lastly, Ken Jochum and Joanne Schultz from Wheeling Township. All right. Now, you know, after this last election, there's been a lot of talk about the demise of the Republican Party. Well, it's alive and well. And that's obviously not the case. Just look at the enthusiasm in this room and the number of people in this room. But we have an important election coming up in a few weeks. It's for various township positions. And I would like the incumbent elected officials in our 7 participating townships to stand, as well as the candidates who are also running in this for the township positions in this April election. Would you all stand, please? There's a lot of you. Now, come on, get up. Come on, there's more than that. Come on. Schaumburg, come on, stand up. There's a lot of them. And we get a lot of requests to introduce specific elected officials, and my general response is that we can't do that, because if I started rattling off names of every elected official who's here, we will be here till midnight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask any elected officials, mayors, councilmen, state senate, rep, congressional, any candidates and any elected officials other than the township ones that have already stood up to please stand up. Come on. Come on, there's a lot of you in here. Come on. There's a lot of you. So be sure to keep them in mind and continue to work hard. I'll be back up here in about 10 minutes after the videos, and I really think you're going to enjoy them. And we're going to do the raffle drawing. If you still haven't turned in your tickets, raise your hand. There's still time, and one of our volunteers will be around. Does anybody still want to buy raffle tickets that hasn't? Okay. All right. We'll be back up in a few minutes.
Senator Kirk has suffered a stroke to the right side of his brain.
But it will be very difficult for him to regain movement on the left side of his body.
The news sent shockwaves from Chicago to Washington. Illinois' junior senator, only 52, was stricken over the weekend.
Welcome back, man.
Serving the people of Illinois is one of the great honors of my life. The people of Illinois have had a tremendous amount of patience with this patient. And a lot of the good wishes were, and prayer circles, I think, made a difference.
We miss you and we wish you well. We think of you a lot.
I got a lot of get well messages and get well videos from some of my colleagues, which were tremendously encouraging.
He's a determined young man. He's 52 years old. He's going to be back in the Senate.
So we send Mark and his family our prayers and our wishes for a speedy recovery.
Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu touched my heart when he made those remarks about my stroke.
And I want to send a special message to a great friend of Israel who's not here tonight, Senator Mark Kirk. I know you're watching us tonight. Please get well soon. America needs you. Israel needs you. I send you Best wishes for a speedy recovery.
I'm very thankful that my colleagues picked up when I couldn't be in the chamber for me.
29 senators have banded together to form a bipartisan caucus focused on getting vets hired.
Well, Chris, let me just say my good friend Mark Kirk, who will be coming back soon and by my side and helping me.
We have enacted strong sanctions. They have had some effect, but we have not had sufficient effect. I want to thank Senator Menendez and Senator Kirk for this language and this amendment.
The U.S. Senate has overwhelmingly approved expanded sanctions against Iran, seeking to further cripple its economy.
Backpage defends the adult section, and 19 U.S. senators want to shut down.
U.S. Senator Mark Kirk is staying on top of issues in the state while he recovers from his stroke.
I've really enjoyed working with Senator Durbin to make sure that we continue the Fitzgerald anti-corruption legacy from that all-important office. I am just thrilled to be back representing the people of Illinois, to join with my senior colleague, Dick Durbin, so that the people of Illinois have two hard-working senators constantly advancing the needs of our state. I want to make sure that throughout the state, if some family is going through the sadness of surviving stroke, that each patient knows to get up and get off that bed, because Kirk did within 1 year just to walk the 45 steps into the Senate. If you or a family member survives stroke, my advice to you is to never ever give up. You will recover.
That's pretty cool to get a get well shout out from baby Netanyahu. That's Mark Kirk, you know, if you read the coverage and you followed his recovery from the time that he was afflicted to the time that he returned to the Senate, I think one of the things you have to appreciate, as much credit as he gave to the doctors and to the physical therapists that helped get him back to fighting shape there, to show his courage and his commitment and his work ethic and his positive attitude to come back the way that he did. I think it's an inspirational story for the Republican Party and for the world over, apparently. And so because of that inspirational story and because of the representation Mark Kirk has offered the state of Illinois as a Republican United States Senator, again, this dinner committee presented him with an award recognizing his courage and his leadership in the United States Senate this past Monday in Washington, D.C., and he put together another video message specifically for this dinner to offer his thanks for the recognition, and we'll play that now.
Many of you have been so kind to me since I got sick, and sitting in the hospital, I have thought more and more about the future of our country and became more and more optimistic about the direction of the United States. I will say that you cannot hold back 300 million people in a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multilinguistic society. I want to thank Rand Paul for honoring us with his presence tonight with our Northwest Suburban GOP activists. I want to thank you guys, always stuck with me through every election, to the Congress and to the Senate. This award is going to look pretty neat on my desk in the Senate. In the coming months, I plan to join with Rand to vote to spend less and borrow less and tax less to save our economy. Exactly the mission that you gave me when you elected me to be your senator.
I know we're not supposed to introduce elected officials or former elected officials, but Mark Kirk reminds me a lot of a former state senator who I respect greatly, who's here with us tonight. And his admonition to me, as somebody who was coming up in the political ranks in the Republican Party, to not just wave the Republican Party flag, but to figure out how to advance it in the realpolitik of policy and politics. I think Mark Kirk embodies that commitment to focus on how we can advance our flag, not just wave it, because waving it's very easy. And the state senator I'm referring to is State Senator Steve Rauschenberger, and I hope you stand up. And with that, before we draw the raffle, I want to bring up Palatine Township Committeeman Aaron Delmar with an update on the all-important goings-on in the Cook County Republican Party.
So that's a ridiculously tough thing to follow. I want to welcome everybody to Palatine. Thank you guys all for coming here tonight. I wanted to thank our Lincoln Day Committee. Thank you guys so much for putting on a wonderful event. We have almost 700 Republicans here in Cook County. 700. So that pretty much means we have every Republican in Cook County in the building today. So I want to say a special thank you to a lot of people here tonight. I could be here all night, but I want to give a special thanks to our friends from the South over here in Cook County. We're sitting right over here. I think they think they're in southern Wisconsin right now, as far off here. But you guys are Southside Sox fans, but we'll still welcome you up here in the North and Cubs country. I want to thank our friends over here from the Illinois Renaissance PAC. Without their help and Jack Rose's help, things in Cook County would be a lot rougher than they are. Just like Mark Kirk said here, we can never, ever give up. And that's got to be the mindset that we move forward through as we start working within the Republican Party in Cook County, because it is definitely going to be an uphill battle. I'm not here to mix words. It's not going to be an easy fight, but it's a fight that we need to fight, and it's something that we need to move forward with. In the last couple months of Cook County, we have done several things that I think are making our way to a better townships, better wards, and a better county in general. We started our ballot integrity program. We're actually going in and putting our poll watchers there and making sure that our election judges are all Republicans. Working with the Illinois Renaissance PAC and Sharon, who's here today, we've noticed that we've had Republican election judges that have 2 decades of Democratic voting records. That's something that we're trying to eradicate here, and I'm happy to say that we've made our first steps towards eliminating that here in the county. So we've done a phenomenal job of moving forward with that, and that's going to make a big difference in the next rotation. The other, thank you. Huh? Thank you. The next item that we've been working on is starting to run Cook County and Cook County politics like a business. That's something that us Republicans are all good at doing. We know how to run businesses, we know how to become entrepreneurs, and we know how to move to the bottom line, and that's something that we're going to be doing. We've started a new incentive program to start helping all the township and wards that are fulfilling the basic needs of being a township or ward committeeman. So if you start putting together your township and creating email addresses so you can email all your people, so you have a website, the basics, getting Facebook messaging out there, social marketing, reaching out to all the constituents that could be on our side of the next location, you guys will be incentivized to do so. So that's going to be a huge project. We've created a committeeman's manual that will be coming out in the next 2 or 3 weeks so we can start training our committeemen, our precinct captains, and give them the education that they need to be successful. That is going to be the key to our next rotation, is giving our people the tools that they need to do a good job. The last and final thing is that in 2014, we are going to have the biggest opportunity that we haven't had in a while. We have an opportunity to take back the governor's mansion, and that has to be our goal. Now, we have several people in the room tonight, people that have sent their well wishes to be here tonight that couldn't make it. We have an opportunity to elect ourselves a Republican governor in Illinois. This is something that we've done in the past. This is something we should be able to do in 2014, and the way to do that is developing our ground game. So going through training our precinct captains, our township captains, our ward committeemen, and giving them the tools and the education they need so we can hit the doors, we can knock, we can break down the doors if we have to get our message across that Republican governor in Illinois is going to be the key to getting us out of our financial gridlock that we're in right now. And I think that we can do it. I think that we have the people, I think we have the manpower, and I think we have the desire to be successful in 2014. And I think if everybody here in this room can make that commitment, I think that we will be successful. So I want to thank everybody for coming out here to Palatine, being with us tonight and spending your time here, and for donating and helping support all of our organizations. And I look forward to seeing every single person here in the fight in 2014 to elect a Republican governor here in Illinois. Thank you.
Okay, now I know that other than Rand Paul, the reason everybody is here is for our mega raffle drawing, right? So we're going to do that now. I think we're going to have John Parker. John, right? Parker, right? John. We're going to have what? Oh, there's more money coming? Okay, I'm told we have to hold on. There's more money coming, and you know, we're going to wait. Hurry up. Come on, Brendan. John, we're going to have you do the... But not yet. We got to wait. Okay, we want to make sure that all the tickets are in here. They have all of our volunteers turned in the tickets. Everybody has? No outstanding tickets? Are we good to go? Okay, we're good to go. The first one picked is for $2,000. The second one is for $500, and the third one is for $250. Winner need not be present. No, the winner is not me, but it is somebody from Schaumburg. It's an elected official. It's George Dunham. Congratulations, George. All right, this one just says, this is for $500. It says Plaxton. I think it's Bruce, but it didn't put his first name on it. 218 Dunlap, Schaumburg. All right. That's $500. Last one is for $250. We saw most of the tickets, so. What does it look like to Jim and Kaz Hood? Okay, this is for $250, Jim and Kaz Hood from Algonquin. You guys here? You want $250? No, no ID necessary. All right, the checks will be in the mail. Dan, do you want to say any closing? Dan, no. You want to say any closing remarks or anything? Are you being up who? Oh, that's
All right, if you can dislodge yourself from your parfaits for just a minute, we want to bring up that lovely young lady, Kathleen Tresnowski, to close the evening with her rendition of God Bless America. So if we could get everybody to stand and for God Bless America, that would be great. Thank you.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. Through the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
I think there's some American Idol contestants out in the audience, too. I heard some nice tenors on that. I want to thank everybody on behalf of the committee that put this together. Thank everybody for coming this evening and for your support of the Northwest Suburban Cook County Township organizations. Thank you and good night.